Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Well, okay, I'm going to get rolling a little bit and just vamp until Scott show up. The title is something about tools, I'm sure it is. Well, the crazy thing is I showed up to these and I say, well, it's such and such, isn't it? And they're going, wrong road. Maker's Workbench, tools every maker should have and know about, and we're going to discuss which tools will maximize your creativity and output in your personal workshop. There he is.
Sorry I'm late, my wife just got here.
And that is the most important tool in your workshop. My wife just got here, so there we go.
One, never underestimate the support of a loving wife.
That's right.
Particularly for this stuff. I was married once before, and she couldn't understand why I liked all this. She hated it. It's like, why? It's just fun stuff. Jeez.
Mine picks something up and says, you should be able to make something out of this. Hands it to me and kicks me out into the garage. That's the kind of news you need. I come back 3 days later, look at us!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ready, switch. Oh, it's on now, okay.
No, we weren't asking you to move.
Oh.
So favorite tools?
Favorite tools. Probably one of my favorite tools right off the bat is a Dremel. The reason it is because of all the different, all the different bits you can put in the front. Angle bits, round bits, straight bits.
Leather burnishers. They now have leather burnishers too.
I have just a tiny assortment of the different bits you can put into it. You can grind, you can sand, you can polish, more sanding, cut off wheels. Probably the most dangerous thing in the kit are the cut off.
Oh, those cut-off wheels. If you're not careful with the cut-off wheels, you will injure yourself. Unfortunately, I know I've kept all of these, but some of them have been damaged before.
This is my Dremel tool here, and it's a real Dremel tool, not one of the knockoffs. 5,000 to 30,000 RPM.
Is that adjustable?
Yeah, it's an adjustable.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Question.
So I've seen that they've come out with the rechargeables now, so you don't necessarily need the
plug
cord. And sometimes I want to do things that getting the cord there is kind of a hard thing to do. And, They go up to 15,000. Is that enough to do most of the work you find yourself using the Dremel to do?
No. It can be, depending upon what it is you're working on. I, however, sometimes work with massive chunks of resin or just styrene plastic. And you got to be careful, particularly with styrene. The resin, you got to be careful with dust, because that dust will get in the air, and if you inhale that, you're in trouble. It'll mess you up. Styrene has a tendency to get hot and melt, and you can get gobs of stuff doing that. But usually you won't be working with such a massive piece of styrene as that. But
Yeah, if you're doing a big project, it's time to break up the big tools. You know, I've literally seen people to handle really big blocks of foam and stuff, pull out chainsaws and big saws just because it's going to take you forever to go through with the Dremel like that. But if you're doing something like EVA armor and you want to kind of engrave in it, the right little bit on this and a steady hand, I've seen amazing stuff produced.
And you gotta take your time doing something like that. If you want something to be as pristine as possible, go as slow as you're comfortable with, not as fast. Because one little slip of that Dremel and right across, and it's like, oh gee, you have to putty it over and sand it again. And
Practice on scrap.
yeah, exactly.
The next step up, and worked in the automotive industry, body work is the air tools that we use in automotive.
Yeah.
It's like super Dremel, but you need a big air source for them. Like I said, you're working on something bigger, like you're making a big sword or a big piece of armor. I find that can save a lot of time.
Yeah, and you get into things like instead of using these to polish, get an auto buffer. You can put an amazing number of different sanding pads, things on that, and it will do the things on a large scale. But for a lot of the stuff we do in steampunk, it's fairly small little pieces. If you get something, a lovely vintage piece, and you decide I want to make it look shiny, that's your right. To take one of the little polishing discs, put a little jeweler's rouge on it, and boy, it'll shine this thing up faster than anything you've seen. It's wonderful. So it's such a versatile tool. It can, in a pinch, work as a drill. You just throw drill bits into it up to a certain size. It'll do a lot of things. It's one of those tools that will do a little of everything, but it's surprisingly good at a lot of those things, as opposed to a multi-tool that's not good at anything, but will do a little bit.
Yeah, Dremel's always been the standard for so many years, but you got there's a lot of quote rip-offs out there, which they're okay, but you can't beat a Dremel itself for what it does.
And they have lots of accessories.
Oh,
anybody use
tons
this?
of accessories.
This is the extension shaft.
The best accessory.
I use it.
I bought it. I tried it a couple times, and I never seem to use it. If you have a tight spot to get into, they're supposedly great. You get, bag after bag after bag of extra pieces and parts, and
Which you'll probably never use.
yeah, but like I think the best thing about it was the case.
Oh yeah.
The case has everything laid out beautifully, and it has all the pieces and parts. And it's a fun toy. I knew Dremel would be the first thing that everyone would say.
Oh yeah. You plan ahead accordingly. Yeah.
Now the other thing though is if you're a maker, you got to decide: am I making one of something or am I making 90 of something? If you're making one of something, this is all you need. This is literally my toolkit I use at home, and it's got just standard little tools in it. It's an old-fashioned tool bag, which I really like because all my tools are standing up, so I know I've got my clippers, I got my needle nose, screwdrivers, everything I need.
And they're sturdy enough to hold up.
Yeah.
Pulling them out and putting them back in, because if you get a cheapy one, pulling the screwdriver up, using it and putting it back in is going to start damaging the bottom of the trough it's in, and you'll end up with the thing poking through. And that's why if you're going to get one of these, get a decent quality one, because then it'll last you for a long time.
Well, as long as you said the Q word, quality, we could start the debate about Harbor Freight. No, wait. This is the Harbor Freight $9 canvas tool bag, and I carried one of these for years to Ren fairs because we did chainmail, and so it has 30 pounds of chainmail links and tools and a tiny anvil and goofy stuff in it, and they held up great. Some of the tools you get at Harbor Freight, I like to think of them as disposable tools. You use them a couple times, you throw them out. And if it's a special weird little tool you're going to use a couple of times, why put all the money into it? If it's something you're going to use a lot, get a good quality tool. It'll be worth it. But they do have some good ones. The thing that I reach for, the second most in this one, this is a tiny pair of what I call snipe nose pliers, needle nose pliers, but they're bent. Because, ergonomics. You want it so it's comfortable to work, comfortable to use. Also, there are no serrations on the jaw, so it won't scratch up your work. And it's got the little springs in it, it's got the deals, these hold up real well. This is their $1.99 tool, it works great.
I've got one of those along with a pair of actual forceps that are just curved. They, however, have teeth on the inside of the jaws, so there's some things I can't do with that if I don't want it damaged. So I guess you got to have a lot of different tools for various things.
This is the #1 tool. This is a genuine Stanley razor knife. And the reason I like the Stanley has the extra storage in the handle.
Yeah.
Also, you push it out a little further, you push the button, and you can quick change the blades. Yet it's very, very secure, because to have these slip when you're cutting a big, you've got a side of leather, and you're cutting it, and it slips.
The side of leather.
We had a class here where we were doing leather goggles, and a gal had one of those little ones that pops out a little section at a time and they break off.
Ooh.
And apparently she had never used a knife before, and she's doing it, and it slipped.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you're using anything sharp to always be in control of where that blade is going to be, even if it does slip. I've done that before, and I'm sure he's done it many times before. I'm sitting there cutting, and I've got a brand new #11 blade, and I'm sitting here, and oh yes, oh dear, what stitches?
Yeah. It's not handmade unless there's blood on it, you know that. Yeah. And things like using the Dremel, proper ventilation, safety glasses, those thin discs of stone that are used to cut bolts off short, and they're fabulous. When you first bring them up to speed, you do it like this, because if they're out of balance, they shatter and fire shrapnel everywhere. So when I use those, I like to use a full face shield, because boy, when those go off, and I never look down straight across it. I always want it angled, so if it does fly off, it's not going to fly into my face.
Bare minimum goggles, absolute bare minimum. If you don't have goggles to put on, you do not be needing to work with a tool like that. But I agree with him, a full face is the best way to go.
What else we got? What is front thing? Okay, I'm going to talk about tools that aren't tools. And now I'm going to just blow the hell out of my argument on quality. If I'm doing small sanding, I hate using sandpaper. Ladies, what's this? Memory board, right? Okay. You can get a pack of 50 of these at the dollar store. In very large down to very small, different shapes, different colors. You use them a couple of times and you throw them away. But they're fabulous because you can get into. In fact, I built one of your Nautilus kits a couple of years ago for the deal here, and to get in and do all that little sanding you need in there, those are invaluable.
Yeah.
So much easier than trying to get in there with sandpaper or a Dremel or anything else. Next to those, I've got big popsicle sticks and little coffee stirrer sticks I get from my favorite barista. You can grab a handful every time you get coffee, or you can break down and get the
Large economy.
It's like 1,000 or 5,000 in a box at Smart and Final for $5.
Yeah.
And you use these for everything. So if you're working with glue, you can use it to mix. You can use it to scrape things off. I use these as the header piece on metals. So we use these for all sorts of things. And I just like to have a big stack of them everywhere that I work, so that if I need to do something, it's hot glue, I don't put my finger on it, you burn yourself. You put one of those in and you use it to brace. I've used them to shim. We use them for everything.
Plus, if you're not feeling well, you can have a friend take it and go,
Oh, look. Leather dye on a stick.
Yes.
I don't like to buy stuff, So I will do weird things that some of you saw, that I skinned a sofa. My wife found a leather sofa somebody threw out. My very best crocodile hunter outfit, I went out there to skin it. I got 50 square feet of leather on it. That's a hide worth of leather. It's pre-finished and sealed. You cannot dye it again. The only way to change the color is to work on the surface. The best thing I found, it's stupid, but the best thing are Marks a Lot magic markers. It holds really nicely when you really build the color up well. It has this beautiful purple sheen to the black. Very pretty. But I've got brown in here for when I have to do belts and stuff too. And at home I actually have a bunch of other colors on. So those are, they're things we probably shouldn't tell you, but if I spray painted some things, I only have one painting trick. Spray it black and then come back with a rub and buff and do the surface and play with it. And if something chips off of it, rather than get out there and try to respray it, I just touch it up with magic markers. Do that all the time.
The colored Sharpies are good for that too.
Colored Sharpies can be good. Yeah, I like the broader tips. You can get these in the poster versions that are this big around. Oh man, they do a 1-inch stripe in a single pass. They're really cool.
Just got to make sure the cap is back on it before you set it down, or you're going to have a big mark on whatever it is you set it on.
You have one of these?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, Ferdinand tool.
Okay, again, we're going to pick on Harbor Freight. They sell these as helping hands. It's a magnifying glass and 2 little roach, but I mean alligator. Wait, we're legal in California now, so yeah. You got your joint here, and when you're self-medicating, please do not use the Dremel. Okay. Just saying. Do you use this much?
Not as often as I used to. I found it really good if I'm doing some highly detailed paint on something like a figure, or maybe say a control panel of a spaceship or something like that. I think the last time I used that, I was doing a control panel on a kit of Uncle Martin's spaceship from My Favorite Martian. And it had enough detail on there, I figured I might as well just paint it right. So I drug that thing out and got in there. And, I had to refocus my eyes after I was finished. But
I use it for soldering because it'll hold the 2 pieces exactly where you need it. You have solder in one hand and iron in the other, which is not the only time I really end up using it. I've been wanting to put it on a hat for years, but it's a little heavy.
Yeah.
So maybe taking the pieces.
Also on the back side of the clips, put a little magnet on each one.
Ooh, magnet on the back side of the clips. I like that as an idea.
That's a good idea.
Nice ceramic magnets.
good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. See, that's why we teach these classes, just to get hints from you guys. Yeah, this is it's only about a $5 item there. And for if you work with anybody still hand paint D&D miniatures? Show how old you really are? Yeah, okay. Nice for that, because you can get really close detail.
And it's not just good for painting, you can use it for weathering things too. Like, say a gold coin or something like that, you got a plastic copy of it, you paint it with nice gold. Something like that comes really handy for suspending it and then spraying on whatever patinas you want to put on it and stuff like that. So. Glue gun.
I know, you're expecting us to sit up here and pick on you for using hot glue gun. I love hot glue guns. They will fall apart if you leave something in your car and it's held together mostly by hot glue. That can be a little tough, but for smaller pieces, particularly when you're doing your original mock-ups or playing with stuff, it's great. I've been starting to do EVA foam, and the people that I like the most on YouTube are saying, this is better than barge, this is better than the contact cement, because you can use it without, having those hallucinations from the vapors on the barge. And it's forgiving. You can hit it with a heat gun and it releases. So, there are times where it's an advantage. The best use I've ever heard from it was a woodworker who said if he's clamping 2 big boards together or something, he spreads all of the regular glue in the middle and then runs a fast bead of the hot glue on the outside, sticks it together, and the hot glue becomes a clamp until the wood glue cures. And otherwise you're out there with 29 clamps and you're trying to do this and it just takes forever. That is a really sneaky, clever little way of doing really fast woodworking. And you better have it aligned well, because you don't have much working time with it.
And a real light bead.
Yeah.
It depends on the size of it. We want to have a fairly thin deal on
The
it.
bigger the bead, the less it's going to squish.
I did break down, I was so impressed, Sergeant Stitch had the Bosch wireless version of this that said it wasn't offered in the US, and I found last year Ryobi put out a construction size glue gun, so it uses the big sticks, but it uses the same battery packs as the drills do. And it lasts a good long time.
It's
so,
the 18?
The 18 volt, yeah.
Wow.
So you put it, well, the nice thing is you put it on there, you turn it on, and in 1 minute, you're ready to go.
Wow.
And I mean, it's those big beefy sticks, and it puts out a lot of it. It has surprisingly good control. And the best thing is, when you set it down, it stays there, because it's sitting on that big battery pack. Because on these, you're always putting them down, they're falling over and whatnot. I wish I could find these again. These graced the shelves of the 99-cent store at one point. And it's a little holder that holds this and forms a drip pad. You don't have glue all over the dining room table. Another reason why So I wish I could find more of those, because I got 6 glue guns I'm setting up for my bacon tape, and I'm just using little cutting boards to put them on.
And the Harbor Freight has blue cheese.
Dollar Store has glue 20 sticks for $1 that I've used it and it works fine. That's the other advantage. It's cheap. The other fun thing is it comes in pretty colors. The glue with glitter in it.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many little tiny glass vials I have stuffed full of that, just because it's interesting and you line them up and they're pretty.
It's not going to leak out.
No, it doesn't leak. It doesn't dry out. It's good stuff. So, think beyond the box. That it isn't just glue. I've had people say, you can put this in old thing maker molds and peel the stuff out, and so it's a mold casting.
Mod Podge made a series of molds for the hot glue, and they have 2 sets that are steampunk
gears. I have those. It takes some talent to work with those. What I'd like to do is you can get a little hot pot, and you just drop in a handful of those sticks and let them melt completely down. And if you do millinery work, you take your feather, you dip the end in that, and then you place it. It's exactly the right amount of glue. So for something like that, I'm thinking about that. What else you got? Okay, how many of you are starting to work with lights and sound chips and neat stuff like that? Spend $10 and get a little multimeter so you can troubleshoot those toys you buy that never work, or your circuits or everything else. It's amazing how often I'll pull something out and it doesn't work. I get a circuit tray, so do whatever you want. Best $10 you'll ever spend. It's also a battery tester. I don't like to use it as a voltage tester because your things have to be on. And I spent too many years reaching into 480 volt switchgear with the big brother to these, testing power, and I was lucky. Nowadays, you cannot do that anymore. Our flash rules are brutal. And that's for good reason, because there are a lot of people who got seriously injured out of it. That's a good trick. This is a joke. This is a good one. This is a portable vise. It's a portable vise that clamps onto a table. It obviously can't take anything big, but it really does the job. That extra set of helping hands that came out. I don't know where I got this. I think it was before we had dollar stores. There was a store in Escondido called K's Deep Discount. And this was before Harbor Freight was out here. And they had the weirdest stuff. And this was it. So it's a hobby. I'm sure on the internet you could find it as a hobbyist vise. But just a little vise you can take with you any place you go. So you're in the hotel and you're trying to fix that thing tonight? Yeah. This is on the side, you're playing with it, you're having a good time with it.
Oh, a hint about handy little things like that. If you're ever at a Harbor Freight or a regular hardware store or any place similar to that, and you see something that that could come in handy. Get it right then and there. I can't tell you how many times, oh, I'll come back tomorrow and get it, and they're gone.
Particularly unusual tools. Also, if you're in an antique store, antique tools are frequently less than the current new version.
Yeah.
You know, you want that really cool, interesting monkey wrench, you go out there and try to buy one new, it's $30, and it was only 10 at the antique store. Those are some of the most underpriced things that I ever find in those vintage stores. And I've got vintage draw knives for doing woodworking, old chisels. There's something called a spoke shave. When I started doing the costuming, I was a hell of a carpenter and could not sew worth a darn. So I traded carpentry work for deals. And what we found was there used to be a show called Woodwright's Workshop on PBS. Okay, and the guy was kind of a goofball, and he would sweat his way. All those shows are shot in a single take, though. That's the amazing part we've got to get out of those. One take, 30 minutes. This is PBS, no commercials. One take, he just goes for it. And he's sweating and he's just falling apart. But he has done all this work with these old tools, and it's one of those, you know, I can pull out the router and I can mount it into the router table, and I can bring the router table out and I can get it set up, and I do 7 pieces to adjust the bit, and I finally get it and I'm ready to run that one piece. Or I can grab an old-fashioned chisel and knock it out in 3 seconds. But again, if you're doing a lot of things, then we've got to get you into the power tools. And yes, I have a power miter box to do those cuts and all those things when I'm doing a class set of 90. If I'm doing one, I got one of those goofy little plastic miter boxes and silly saw it, quickly saw it out.
Any other questions about anything we do?
Aha.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Q-tips, right?
Q-tips.
Oh man, use these
Best
for
paintbrushes
everything.
ever.
Literally.
When you're cleaning, when you're painting, when you're oiling stuff, you know, we get too much oil on it, you're doing any, these are just invaluable. And the reason mine are in these pretty packages is the dollar store, they come in metal tins. And so these are a byproduct of work that I do with the metal tins. So they're everywhere. They just fall apart.
Talking about stores to go to, I also do model trains, and there's a catalog called Micromod, where all these small tools
Micromod,
come from. They specialize in really small tools for modeling.
Yeah, I use Micromark to get a few things every now and then.
They're not cheap tools.
No, they're not cheap, but they're also decent enough quality. They're not just going to break. How many people here go to the dentist on a regular basis? Now, one thing you can, if you remember to do this, when you visit the dentist and you're finished, ask him, do you have any old dental tools that you're going to throw away? Usually the dentist will say, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I got this box of them. Do you want them? Get them out of here. And I found them invaluable because you can modify the tips, put it on the grinder, put a edge back on it, and just all kinds of various things you can do. Yeah.
Just make sure he autoclaves them first.
Yes,
No,
that's an
I think for
interesting
years,
thing.
a lot of dentists won't do it anymore unless you have an autoclave and you talk them into it because they're afraid of that.
Oh, yeah.
Also, they got to be hard to break.
Yeah. You can get an assortment of little dental pick-looking things as clay tools. They sell them for that. They're invaluable for picking things apart. Now that's another thing. It's one thing to say you got tools for building stuff. Where are you getting all your parts from? Are you buying them new or are you scrounging? You know, what can you find? And only the front row will be able to see this, but my cufflinks are the motor rotors from CD-ROM drives. They are the coolest looking thing. Come up later, take a look at them. They're so cool looking. They're coppery, they're wonderful, they're highly detailed. To get to them and take that apart, you have to have a set of star drivers and the Security Star drivers, which have a hole in the middle. I just found recently a group online was selling a set of all the security bits for like $9. You can take apart anything. Because normally I get it till that one screw is hanging on, then I'm beating at it and gnawing at it like a crazy Wolverine. But you eventually get it apart to get that piece you need.
That's a good buy, because my Star Trek says Snap-on.
Well, remember, how many times do I expect I'm going to need to use these? 3 or 4, so this is a disposable tool again. Because, yeah, I've got a whole set of Snap-on wrenches from my beloved father-in-law that I love, and I use those for everything. And we found when we were cleaning out his toolbox that he still had the little loan card that he bought. They said his first set of Snap-on tools, $20 was it originally, but he paid for it over like 8 weeks. $1.74 each week, and then they actually bought things on time like that. But those tools from the 50s are much better than anything like classic. So yeah, again, when people say, "Oh, we're just cleaning out Grandpa's garage," volunteer to help. Now, occasionally, Grandpa had some weird stuff, and I have seen the bomb squad called because Grandpa had a couple of jars of picric acid now dry. The bomb squad even gets excited about that. But lots of times they will have just weird, funky, wonderful stuff. Tools, old things. A vacuum cleaner from the 50s is a treasure trove of wonderfulness. Good. So, and they come apart with a Phillips head screwdriver, the entire thing. You have to find that magic screw. And you take that apart, the thing just falls apart beautifully, and you put it back together. Modern stuff you beat to death. I didn't bring, but I've got from our group rig the 1-foot Wonder Tool, which is a small but heavy crowbar. And we used to use them to raise panels into position, because you throw it on the floor and then you stand on it and it'll raise the panel 3/4 of an inch. Crazy stuff. Doesn't matter what's in it. That's a great box. Again, people will throw boxes out. These originally held tape drives for data storage back in the day. What's a tape drive? Yeah. But when you see things like this, grab them, because they become great storage, and they're just a wonderful thing.
Almost the same exact size as now the 25-pack for extra gum.
Ooh, okay.
Target's got them for under $3.
Oh, look at that! That's a plastic knife.
Yeah.
You mix epoxy. Yeah, use it once, throw it away. And also, you keep the little lids off of anything that, like a Pringles lid, because that's what you mix your epoxy in. Because you use it once and you throw it away. Actually, those you use it, let the epoxy set up, flex it, the epoxy pops off. You can reuse it. The other thing is, if you're using your hot glue gun and you get a little bit of glue oozing out, let it harden up, and then use the serrated piece and just gently work at it, and it will peel it all right off without disturbing any of the other things. It won't even disturb the paint around it. So yeah, I don't keep the spoons, I don't keep the forks, but boy, the knives, we keep like mad on these. Very handy. Screwdrivers. Now you can't use these on delicate work, but these are vice grips. And vice grips will save you on so many things. Backing off an old, rounded out nut or bolt, yeah. For little pieces, it's a micro vise. And you can hook something in it, hang it on the side. If you're painting something small, it's a great little deal to support it and hold it for that. These are tiny ones. These are the needle nose. I haven't seen these for a while, but they're very nice. But this is a genuine vice grip. I obviously had to inherit that from somebody who's like too cheap to go out and buy one for myself.
They are a little expensive.
But worth it.
A lot of Sears are going out of business right now. Great tool sales.
Yeah, but the problem is they're not the Craftsman tools we grew up with.
No.
My dad, when we'd be walking, if he found an old Craftsman wrench or any kind of wrench or screwdriver, falling off a truck, no matter how mangled it was, if you could make out it said Craftsman on it, you could walk into a Sears store, trade it for a brand new one. They had lifetime warranties. No questions asked. On the other hand, he still has his original Craftsman wrenches from that time period. So.
Stanley, they bought them and they're going back to make everything in the United States again. They're slowly going to put everything back in the United States, and then also they're going to go back to the lifetime guarantee.
If they go back to True Drop Forged and everything, I would pay the money for
They're
it.
going to start doing
Yeah.
that. And Lowe's is going to take it over.
The tools you use all the time, don't skimp on it. If you're using that tool all the time, get the tool that fits your hand well and that looks great. If the little rubber stuff starts to wear off, this is the home-built stuff. This is the plastic dip you can get at Home Depot, and it works great. You dip and have to wait 30 minutes, and you have to do 9 coats that way, so it takes 3 days. But it builds up a beautiful, nice surface on it. I'm redoing some of the old tools again for my father-in-law because they were just so nice.
Heat shrink works nice too.
Heat shrink's good? Yeah. Heat shrink tube you can use on this?
Yeah, I wish I was able to get my grandfather's tools, because he was a carpenter. He had, I can't even begin to tell you how many weird tools he had. But when he passed away, they kind of disappeared. Of course, I was at the time I was too young to make that much of a fuss out of it. But it's like, oh man, my toolbox now would be so awesome if I had those things. Well,
again, look in those antique stores. Lots of times antique stores, the stuff's way too pricey. Not the tools. It's amazing how cheap the tools are.
you can find some decent things at swap meets and garage sales. I mean, it's kind of rare to come across some of the better stuff, but you just don't know. I went by a garage sale one time and he had a plastic box full of dental picks. It's like, oh, how much you want for these? Make me an offer. I give you $3 for the whole box. It was sold. Okay. It's rather difficult to curb my enthusiasm. Yes, but you can eventually find things like that.
You should have at least 6 to 8 sets of scissors in your kits. Little tiny ones. One's dedicated to the fabric. Never, ever, 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 ever take your wife's fabric shoes. Don't even think about it. Don't go there. My mother gave me a set of nice Ginger shears, Dinger, and I didn't take care of them well. I'm kicking myself. I need to go in and see if they can be salvaged. So when you gotta cut something real heavy duty, get a pair of the paramedic shears. You're not gonna use them that often, so again, Harbor Freight, couple of bucks. They'll cut through a penny, and you have to try it once, right? Those same pennies, it goes right through. The old Browns ones, you have to struggle. They will work on that for cutting real heavy leather. If I'm cutting little pieces, I'll use this. Big pieces, I stake it down, and I get my razor knife out and play with it. But for fine work, no. Get little nice scissors. Again, medical scissors for little work are tremendous. They're incredibly sharp. They're very, very good quality stainless. I've never seen those rust because they have to go through outer plates all the time. So it's one of those things that you keep looking, and if you can ever find a military surplus field surgery kit, they're in every one of the deals, and they're at least $20. If you can get them under 20, they're worth buying a set because you get those nice forceps, you get the actual hemostats, the locking clamps that are small, but they're angled, there's all sorts of different things. And if you have to do small work where it's difficult and awkward, a set of those hemostats is absolutely worth it. If you go down to Kobe's, there are groups that are selling them, and they're $3 or $4 a pop, but they're worth it, absolutely. label these so you can get everything where they're supposed to be, because then I'll reach for it later and it'll freak me out. Okay, when you start doing a lot of stuff, so we're talking power tools now, bench-mounted power tools. What's your number one go-to that you tell them this is the first thing you got to put in your shop?
Well, that sort of goes between a disc sander and a bandsaw. The reason it goes between those two is that the bandsaw is great for cutting out pretty much anything you need, unless of course you're cutting steel and metal, then you have to have the right bandsaw for that. But it allows you to cut out what it is you want to use in your costume piece, in your prop piece, and anything else you're doing. And the sander, disc sander, allows you to clean it up a bit and get some of the hard edges off of it. And yes, you must wear gloves if you're doing metal, and it's a large piece of metal. Now, it's not recommended you use small pieces of metal on a disc sander, because it's going to get hot very quickly. I won't show you the blisters, but it can get very hot very quickly. And I made that mistake early on in my career and had to let loose with the thing, and the disc caught it, and that is not good when that happens. So one of our guys at the shop I work at was messing around with our disc sander, and the motor on this disc sander is this big around. The disc is this big around. And this thing gets going at about 30,000 RPMs, just some real high, ridiculous thing. And it's great for taking down metal, even steel. But he was not paying attention to what he was doing. The disc caught it, pulled his hands in, but didn't pull him into the wheel itself. It merely took a slight bit off the ends of his fingers. And I said, what happened? Oh, I had this thing caught it for some reason. Oh, really? How were you holding this? Well, I was holding it like this. I go, if you were holding like that, the disc wouldn't have caught it. How were you holding it? Well, I had it like this, and I was doing it. It says, you get away from this machine right now, you're going to kill yourself. So you gotta be careful with some of the bigger power tools and that, because unless you're trained by someone who knows how to use it, then don't use it. Yeah.
I have a former coworker who had a circular table saw and has a 19-year-old amputated the end of a finger from the last knuckle out.
And it can happen instantaneously.
I work with grinders all the time. I just caught a piece of metal once wrong, and I actually ground my entire nail off.
Right.
The doctor didn't think it was going to grow back. Unfortunately, it did.
Oh, wow.
Away.
Grinders are the most often cited piece of equipment by Cal-Ocean. That's the first they can walk in because they're never adjusted right.
And the guards come off so easy.
Well, people take the guards off because they're hard to work around. You know, if you're using it right, the guard is your friend. The guard helps you. Again, I've had people turn those on, and I run over and pull the plug. What was that? You didn't hear that tinging noise? That tinging noise is your only warning about a third of a second before the wheel disintegrates and launches itself like shrapnel over the whole area. It's relieving internal stresses.
And I've heard the excuse that, well, I'm standing in front of the wheel. It would go out like this and it wouldn't hit me. It's like, no, you're anywhere near that. And it can fling something at you before you even realize what's happening.
Yeah, training on equipment like this, I know we're harping on this, but again,
Safety.
You worked your whole life around this stuff. I worked my whole life around it. Training is not reading the manual.
No.
Reading the manual allows it to turn it on. To actually put stuff against it, you find the old timer in that shop. who still has all 10 fingers. That's the guy you want, okay? And have him show you. He's going to show you techniques. And I apologize to the women folk in the audience, but it's always an old guy. And they will show you techniques that will make it easier, better, safer, more wonderful, more everything. Because they've just got it's just the years of experience on the tool. And that's the right way to learn that. The old apprenticeship program is still the best way to learn on that kind of equipment.
I had some old guys show me how to do this and then this and stuff like that. And once I learned the technique he was teaching me, it's like, how could I do it any other way and have it turn out this kind of quality work? So if you have someone to go to that you can ask questions about, no, definitely. Yeah.
I hate to ask, but say you can't find somebody who knows this stuff. I hate to admit how much stuff I've learned off of YouTube. I mean, is there, like Lost Wax Guy or whatever, I mean, is there anybody that you actually like that does some of this? Anything else?
That's a good question.
That is a good one. I haven't gone looking for it because I, grew up around him and got trained by those old conveyor machinists. Oh, Lord, they were great.
Lost Wax.
So great.
But I'm not
Lost Wax.
Well, I'm just saying that's what I have to do is because I don't have any old timers to do that stuff.
Lost Wax is a guy named Chris who's does EVA foam stuff.
Storm the Castle.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Storm the Castle.
Back there.
Okay.
Highly recommend, if they want to learn to run machinery, they want to run techniques and stuff, find a tech shop.
Yeah.
There are tech shops run in most of the cities around here.
And also makerspace.
Yeah, makerspace is,
Tech shop
They
makerspace,
can-
same
they can be
thing.
pricey.
Take a community college
Okay.
class.
Those places will have people who will teach you first, safety, check out for.
Anybody here from the labor board or the I'm about to share something they don't want you to know. If you ever get laid off or you're on unemployment or anything, ask for a copy of the ROP catalog, Regional Occupational Program. When you're unemployed, you can take all those classes you want for free. They will teach you how to arc weld.
Wow.
I kicked myself because the last time I was out, I swore I was going to go up there and do that, and I didn't get around to it. But they'll teach you to do a lot of those things, which is interesting. Some of the your local highway adult night school, they will take you into the high schools and work in those shops. They have beautiful shops the kids aren't allowed to use anymore. It's not part of their curriculum, but because they're there, they let the night school do it. And again, it's typically the retired teacher who is doing it. So they can teach you a lot of those kind of things.
San Diego Academy, which is a public school, has a working shop with students. The high schoolers are actually in there. They helped a group of adults and high schoolers build an 800-pound steampunk robot that's at the Automotive Museum right now. It's part of that. And they have a $2 million shop. I mean, they really do. So you can go in there. They have an adult school program. Palomar College has welding certificate programs, a lot of good machining shops.
Sounds like what I wish my garage was like.
Yeah.
That's right.
I would just like to say, do not make assumptions about women. I personally climbed telephone poles and put in switchboard for 10 years. And I hate going to Home Depot or someplace like that when I know exactly what I want and why I want it. And I actually had someone in Lemon Grove tell me to please bring my husband or my boyfriend.
Oh, you're serious?
I got him fired.
This is why we go to YouTube looking
Yes,
for this stuff.
I have as many tools as men, and I know how to use them. And it makes me crazy when you start saying something, somebody goes, oh, well, it's probably something you don't understand. Because you don't know what someone's background is.
I have been pleased when I go to the maker spaces that there are almost more women than men working on it. And actually teaching and doing the things. Very impressive. So hopefully we're getting away from that. Yeah, the shop might
Can you share some more metal shaping tools that you
If you're you're doing 1 or 2s, I'm back to hand files and stuff, just because to get a bench grinder and, like you say, the disc sanders and the equipment to do that takes a big shop. Most people need to have the room for it or the time for it. They're
Or the
expensive.
electricity for it, because they're usually
Three-phase.
3-phase, yeah.
Well, that's a inch by 30 belt sander. Wonderful for a lot of things.
A lot of belt sanders, a lot of equipment we think of as wood. You mentioned band saws. Band saws can be set up for metal. It's again how often you're going to use it. If you're doing one project and you use a little bit of it, that's when a makerspace is real appropriate. You go down there, they've got people who train you, show you how to use it, and you use it once a year, you're great. If you're using it a lot, then put the investment into it.
Making all your armor for your SCA group.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really cheap, it's cheap tricks for the metal shop, that's a really tiny thing, and if you're willing to make some of your own tools, there's some really cheap, like cheaper than normal freight ways to set up a silversmith shop in there, so that was pretty good.
I find a drill press is kind of too handy to skip.
I do have a drill press in mine. I don't have a bandsaw because I don't work in the small wood anymore on that, but the drill press. The other thing is on any piece of equipment like that, hunt up, and I'm sure somebody in YouTube must show this. Again, I learned it in shops, but you could put fences onto the working space. And if you've got to do, we were drilling holes or making like, picture a cribbage board. It was actually to hold little sticks to make Elizabethan rough collars. Very obscure thing. But you had to drill 30 holes, 4 rows of those. And we were making like 20 or 30 of these at a time. And if you have to carefully measure out and mark and align every one of them, it's crazy. But if you set your fences up properly, and this is true of table saws, I mean, every radial arm saws, you put a stop on it. You set those up, you can start just drilling like, oh, you're a machine. It's just a very high production activity. But and setting a fence up sounds complicated. It's setting wood blocks up and clamping them onto it so that you have an exact distance that's always the same. And now you're just doing repeatability and you're going down the line. I've seen groups do things like they have a little finger that drops into the previous hole and that sets your spacing to the next one, and it just goes like crazy. So mass production techniques on power tools. Again, if you're using it enough that you need to buy the power tool, learn how to use it so you can do high productivity work like that.
One guy was saying he uses as a leather punch, his camera, or his stand-up drill. He said he goes through a lot of leather.
You can also get bench-mounted punches that actually work nicely with it. I find that the drill press will sometimes chew up your leather a little bit when you try that, because I have tried it.
They make punches in body shops and stuff. They're
Yeah.
just doing that. They make hand punches for that in body shops for doing metal. I had talking about buying cheap. The metal shop at the college, NAU, was going out of business, and I bought at auction a whole bunch of their tools.
So talking about leather tools, they have the nice leather punch, you know, the lever action leather punches. And you can get a cheap arbor press. Have you tried doing the arbor press technique if you're not going to do a lot of that and trying to jury rig that same?
I haven't. Again, you ultimately have to buy dies to use a press. And if the dies are set up right, they would work in the leather deals, but to get the dies, you may as well get the bench-mounted press, because that's going to be pretty close to the
Some other way of doing that is, if you ever use gasket punches. They're you know the small ones, the leather punches? They make them in bigger sizes for making gaskets for automotive crews. So again, you gotta get those usually off the tool trucks, the Snap-on or whatever. They don't carry them in Harbor Freight. They're gasket punches. You can punch through a full, I do mud flaps at work with them.
They got one in Harbor Freight.
Do they? I don't never seen them. Gasket punches.
They're like $45.
Punches like that, though, do dull pretty quickly. So it's important that you always use the right backer on it. Even a leather punch, you have a scrap piece of leather behind it so that the die is never hitting the little brass plate, and you'll get 2 or 3 times the use out of it. That was a trick taught to me by Margaret. She's my expert when I get to any of those kind of things. Okay, any last thoughts?
For anybody who works with metal, has anybody got any experience with little smithy combination guilds blades?
Oh, the Smith all-in-one-shot deals? I haven't seen them for metal. I've always seen them predominantly for wood, but they are a boring machine and they'll do a lot of different things. I know people who do a lot of high number production kind of things complain that because they do a lot of things, they don't do any one thing well. But they will work as a lathe and as a disc sander and as a ton of different things. Supposedly you never buy one new because there are widows selling those really cheap all the time.
I've even seen them at Goodwill.
Yeah.
Shareline does a combination combination end mill lathe. They're made here in Vista, and then there's about 5 or 6 shops nationwide who will turn that into a mini CNC. And you can actually then do, once again, steel is not going to be something you're going to do on one of these little things, but they do aluminum pretty well, and they definitely do plastic and wood. And there's a lot of people who've done those both for modeling and for, college level maker spaces for mini, before they came out with these new little mini end mill systems, they were kind of the go-to standard.
Well, I think we're just about out of time here, so I'm going to thank you very much for coming out today. Thanks for all the tips you gave us.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.